takes, what are the trends, job, careers, positioning, whatever that you are thinking of or want to kind of want to position yourself. So let me start with a quick introduction of Srini and then hand it over to him. I'm going to mute everyone off now. So I have muted everyone off so that we can focus on the presentation. And in between, we will Srini will open up if there are any questions to take at that point of time, and then we'll continue with it. Any questions that you guys might have, please put it in the chat so that we can make a list of it and then go through it based on the time that we might have. So we are thinking of finishing it in about an hour. So try to learn as much as possible from Srini and team. So regarding Srini, in a career spanning over 25 years, Srini has developed a broad expertise in data, business intelligence, and analytics. This experience combined with enterprise data strategy, risk management, delivery management, global outsourcing, and regulatory reporting expertise has enabled him to lead unprecedented business transformation and consistently exceed the organizational objectives. Currently, Srini leads the enterprise data strategy and next-gen data platform capabilities for Trees Bank, which is a top US financial holding company. This responsibility includes building strategic platforms, supporting newly established Truist Innovation Center with best-in-class tools and platform support for leveraging data to drive business insights into revenue opportunities and efficiencies while ensuring regulatory compliance. So that was too much of jargons out there. So we'll have Srini help to simplify it. So Srini has been a good friend, mentor, as well as a leader for many of us. So wanted to introduce Srini. Over to you, Srini.
Unmute Srini first.
Srini, not able to hear you. You have to unmute yourself. Can you unmute?
Okay. Yeah, now I can unmute because once I go into share the presentation, I was not able to unmute myself. Can you see my presentation out there?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, thanks, Vignesh, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity for sharing my experience with you all. Uh, 94 batch, and in 3 years I was in Chennai working on antivirus solution, and then I joined TCS and was with Amex for 3 years in Sydney, and that was my first experience of data, where we built a metadata repository for all their credit card mainframe systems out there, and that really helped us transition into Y2K in a very smooth way, and that's when I saw the power of data. Then I came to US through Infosys and with Goldman for 2 years, and then 9/11 happened and decided to move out of New York, so landed up in Charlotte and was with Bank of America for nearly 13 years from 2002 to 2015, helping them build varied data solutions, be it enterprise warehouse, marketing, customer analytics, the innovation hub, and fraud analytics. So there's quite a lot of stuff. I worked with Bank of America and gained a lot of experience. In 2015, I got an opportunity with SunTrust to build their data lake. It was a very good, challenging assignment. I joined them in 2015, and in 2017, as we rolled out data lake, my seniors asked me to take up the whole data platform, data analytics platform, and start putting a vision together. And with that, in last year, end of 2019, we merged with BB&T to become the sixth largest bank out there with 473 billion in asset and 10 million households and 59,000 teammates out there. So we changed our headquarters to Charlotte. So I'm back in Charlotte, And our my current role is as Vinesh mentioned. So yeah, I head the data strategy and next gen platform, and I'm also the data evangelist, trying to educate and transform the organization as a data driven organization. So, truest, we are a purpose driven company, inspire and build better lives and community. And I'm really proud to be associated with this. So getting into the topic, right? So I'll try to cover as much as quickly as possible so that you can ask question. And most of you would have heard this term. Data is new oil. It's not a new oil. It's always been an oil. And if you go back and look at any history or even in your day-to-day life, you make a lot of the decisions using data. Data need not be in the form of structured tabular format numbers. It could be any information you read from papers, gossip, it's all about how you ask the next set of questions to refine that data to make decisions. And that's what this Clive Humphrey nicely put together. It's like oil, unless until you refine it and you ask the next set of questions, so what, how, why. All those questions lead to the right value of data. So just for the simplicity, I just put together a slide to talk about what constitutes data. Data is everywhere. Data is, and how do I draw the boundary for what I do versus what we're focusing today. So if you look at it, data lifecycle has the acquisition, which is you heard of acquisition and transformation, like batch processing, like ETL, ELT, all those concepts. Then the real time, which has got API, streaming, like Kafka, and all those stuff comes into picture. And this is where you capture the data, you transform it, store. The store is very important for consumption perspective. And store could be like a simple database table or marts or warehouse where the concepts of Snowflake or star schemas are mentioned. And the new technology, which is the data lake, which is more of a file based and people can access it directly. So if you look at it, it's more structuring of the data to access it. The first layer is a logical layer. The second layer, which I mentioned there, Redshift, MongoDB, and all this stuff, these are the physical layers of how do you access the data. The Redshift, MongoDB, and all gives you the columnar levels to access the data faster, or NoSQL DB to access it faster. S3, blob storages, which helps you store it and without replication, all this concept. MPP and graph databases helps you process the engine faster out there. Which is actually goes along with data lake, which is more of Parquet or Avro kind of a format, which helps you store the data. And the storage is very important in terms of accessing data. With us going through this age of IoT, where we have millions and millions of records hitting on a hourly basis in any organization, how do we store and how do we access this is very important. And then the third layer, which is the consumption. And this is where most of the users use. Like we have BI tools, which is dashboards, click tableaus are some of the tools there. Then we have picture perfect report. I don't know if anyone of you have worked with those days. When I started my career, we had crystal reports. The people used to print in a big dot printers to be handed over to the branch managers for them to look at the performance and all this stuff. So of physical reports are there. Then we have the real-time consumption, just like consumption into the data layer. We have consumption out of the data layer using API, microservices, streaming out there. And then the analytics. I've listed down the tools. There are like various types of analytics which happens. The people take the data, they run certain logic or models, and then statistical models, and then store the output back so that decisions can be made better. And there are SAS, R, Python are examples, and there are a lot of new generation software with interactive analytics out there. And then finally, the general application comes to the central data ecosystem to pull the data for doing various application logic processing out there. And then all these things, apart from that, there is another one which includes metadata, data quality, data stewardship, all those things comes along the data management. It's a very vast topic out there. And then the data security and privacy policies, which are very important out there. And how do you secure the data? How do you secure the PII, which is like SSN, social security, driver license number, how do you secure it and make sure that only the right people are accessing it? And then data policies, which includes like who, what, and how data will be stored and used and out there. And so all these things run in parallel throughout all the layers out there. So this gives you the ecosystem, and not to scare you, this is available in the internet and the data economy, which talks about there are various aspects of the data lifecycle, and there are thousands and thousands of tools available out there for you to use out there. Just to give you a snapshot of, it's a really complex ecosystem out there. So coming back to the FS industry, how does the data maturity evolve in FS industry? So data was always there. We had data marts doing reporting, risk management, all those things was happening out there. The actual data journey, which I call it in the new era of data journey in FS, started somewhere around 2005. Just around the financial meltdown, where all the big regulators started pushing the big four financial services organization to start looking at data as a proper function, so that they can get confidence on what is getting reported to them. So that's why the data organization started with the pure risk and regulatory focus there. So the focus was setting up a CDO organization, setting up accountability, policies, and all those things were a key focus there. And then as these organizations started maturing, they wanted to get efficient out there. And that's where they started bringing in, how do I store this data in a domain-based concept like credit card domain, account domain, lending domain, so that it's easy for me to get and validate those data. Then they started coming up with the concept of ADS, authoritative data source, so that everybody pulls it from one source, so that it's consistent reporting across the organization. Then it started looking at centralizing some of these data stores, and then automating these functions around data, so that we can get more efficient out there. Then as the year progressed, then the real focus started coming on the cost saving. The cost data was becoming costly to manage in any organization. So and then the compulsion to reduce the cost started them looking at making it as a shared service, bringing as taxonomy, and instead of being a separate data management, managing data, doing the data management, data quality, while the ETL, ELTs are happening, pushing for more self-services, bringing cloud storage solution. A lot of those concepts started coming up during the time. And now in the last 2-3 years, we are seeing the industry, the regulation going down. Industry is trying to see how they can use this wealth of information for what I call it as an offensive purposes, which is to grow the organization instead of being defensive for regulatory needs. So now they're looking at, people are looking at how do we monetize the data, like Goldman just launched the API-based access to their data for a payment. And then we have open banking, where various banks are exchanging data out there for faster delivery of information back to customers. Now the implementation of AI ML out there, and the digital governance has started happening with the CCPA and other regulation coming in. There's a lot more privacy by design concept coming in, and also the cognitive. And people are now, recent one is people have started talking about blockchain and financial services. So that's why it's improving, it's changing. But if you look at it, that's been a journey for almost every organization out there. Big organizations are already there. Top 5, top 6 banks are already there. The smaller banks, they probably are like 3 or 4 years behind out there. But if you look at data in financial services, we are probably like 4 or 5 years behind the retail industry, and then which is like a couple of years behind the Silicon Valley tech industries out there. So that's a trend we are seeing there. So where is industry going overall with this, right? So why this change in offensive techniques now in the using data? So if you look at it till now, the industry been focused on building assets. At least FS, it's all about asset, how big you are, and all this stuff. Now it's changing to more scale of data. With all the Silicon Valley companies coming into financial services, for example, T-Mobile already launched a T-Mobile Bank. Amazon is launching the small business loans. Apple has launched a card. PayPal is looking at launching banking products. So they have the power of data, and now they are trying to use it to provide more financial services out there. So the landscape is changing out there from assets to data, from mass production to tailored experience. As the customers, we don't want a same monolithic product. We want to fine tune our product to exactly what we want customer today. And then exclusivity of relationship to optimizing matching. Now all these financial institutions are realizing, and even not in finance industry also, but other industries also realizing they cannot hold a customer exclusively, because as a customer, each customer has an option of going and buying so many things. So now they are actually bringing in the multiple parties together, combining and selling it. That's what we call is a bundling of product. If you go to, like, for example, if you go to Willow and take a Willow subscription, it comes with your Ghana subscription and also Hotstar subscription now. So that's a combination of the product out there, which goes to the next point. Instead of worrying about a switching cost, they are giving these are the benefits which are coming in for retention benefits out there. And then finally, but not the very important thing, with the changing landscape, with the power. Earlier, I could go and scrape through your HTML logs and find out where all you visited, pull that information. I can create a product stream and give it back to you as a customer, but now it's not there anymore. So I need to be very clear on what data I am pulling in from you and how I'm using it and how I'm giving back, whom I'm giving this data to. All those details have to be disclosed, and each of the consumer has a right to control what is being shared. So what is the challenges today in FS industry? So if you look at the challenges perspective, the main thing is organization of the data. Even though we have worked on so much on the data is not organized in a proper way. Unless it is organized, you cannot really harvest the benefit of the data. So that's the first challenge we are facing in the FS organization. The second big challenge is defense versus offense analytics. Now the focus has been defense, and as an organization, financial services, because they are under pressure from regulation, they are more tend to focus on defense rather than offense analytics. Whereas some of the tech companies or the new age fintech companies don't have that pressure, so they're really going to offense analytics and taking the share from the brick and mortar financial services company. And then the next one is the rate of innovation. The innovation has been very slow in the FS industry. Insurance is even slower, but FS is pretty bad considering the dynamics of today's environment. Next one is the availability of skill sets. The skill set is very scarce. If you look at most of the high-tech next-gen platform people, the younger population like to go to Googles of the world, Amazons of the world, and the Silicon Valley companies or more tech companies rather than coming to FS. So there's a huge shortage of skill set, and there's a lot of opportunity which are there unfilled in FS out there. And for all the roles which are currently filled, people are not fully capable. They are struggling to get to that. And that's why the next point, the adoption of next gen capabilities is extremely slow, be it cloud or AIML, open banking. All these concepts are pretty slow in the brick and mortar FS. But if same thing, if you take the fintech companies, they're way ahead out there. They're utilizing the power of these technologies and moving fast out there. So if you look at the data analytics opportunity, so data is all over the place. So how do I see? I've just kind of given a simple sample out there. There is a math, stats, and algorithm. That is the key focus of the statisticians who are giving the various business strategies. There is a software engineer. The data engineer is a big similarly, the data scientists and data analysts, there's a big overlap in that community, which cuts the business, the analytics, and which is the statisticians and the software programming. So you, as a data professional, you need to have all the three qualities out there. And then if you look at it, I kind of pulled some stats from a peer research company where it shows that banking, there's a huge amount of data and analytics growth which is happening, hiring which is happening at this point of time. And there are a lot of positions unfilled out there. So what are all the analytics in the banking and financial functions? So first is the risk management, the biggest, which is the market risk, credit risk, operational risk. There are a lot of work which goes on in terms of running various statistical model to come up with how much risk financial services has got, how do you manage the cash balances, all this stuff. So that is an out of which the credit risk is one of the out from a risk data analytics perspective. The next one is econometrics and behavioral modeling. So there are various modeling work which happens to manage the interest ratios and all this stuff. So out of which now the biggest thing which I'm seeing is in the payment, mortgage, and car loans, where people are trying to do the behavioral modeling, and a lot more opportunities are there. The next is financial forecasting and regulatory reporting, which is very important, and one area where all the banks have always have struggled is stress testing. They've done the stress testing, but there is a lot more stuff which needs to be done in terms of automation, in terms of keeping the model current. There's a lot of opportunities in that space. Then in general, the overall optimization, revenue management, and all this stuff, that's another area where data and analytics is useful. Business intelligence and analytics. If you look at it, I'll take an example. My team manages around 20,000 reports and dashboards out there. And this is one portion. This is only the automatic dashboards delivered through Click, Cognos, Tableau kind of tools. And there are like hundreds of thousands of reports which goes on manual report which goes on in Excel out there. So BI is another big area out there. And then this business and there are specific analytics which are done in the channels, segments, and the big areas are marketing. There are a lot of work which is going on in marketing. And now next big thing in the industry is the client experience. So those are the areas where there are a lot of BI and analytics works are going on. And the data science, we adding data science is general, which is more of next gen platform oriented, where fraud is a big stuff which is happening today, whether it's a cyber fraud or general check frauds and all this stuff, which is another big stuff. And it's just like the in thing, every company is struggling to minimize the fraud out there. And then the other important stuff is data stewardship and management out there, which is another lot of work is going on, because data stewardship and management leads to the proper organization of the data. So that's another lot of work going on with the AI ML in terms of automating that piece of it. So what are the technical skills you need for managing this? Typically we see in most of the areas the common things are SaaS. SaaS is big in financial services, but it's kind of a monopoly from SaaS, but we are looking at how And the reason why there's been slow in replacement is because the availability of skill set. So that's been a challenge, and SAS has been a market leader in this space. Then obviously Excel is the biggest one out there. The other stuff is MATLAB, which is more of a modeling tool out there. Then Click, Tableau for dashboard, and there are a lot of software for reporting. And then we have Hadoop, Spark, and TensorFlow, those kinds of tool sets for new age analytics out there. So I went and last year I was looking at trying to hire people and trying to see what kind of market space we have. I just ran a search on machine learning in US. There are 22,000 jobs which are there, and 938 jobs in FS alone. So there's so much of opportunities out there in the market out there, and FS is now just climbing up in machine example. Like the financial services is competing for a scarce talent out there. So there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of demand which is going to pick up pretty soon. So what is Truist doing there in this whole space? So Truist is already partnering with Georgia Tech, Georgia State University, Emory in terms of interns and in terms of a lot of projects with these institutions. And now with Truist was mainly from a SunTrust perspective. We were already engaged. Now with becoming a Truist, we are now looking at North Carolina also, wherein we are looking at UNC Charlotte, UNC Chapel Hill, NC State, Wake Forest, and North Carolina Agricultural Technology University. So we're already doing some cool work with UNC Chapel Hill in terms of quantum computing research and all this stuff. So there's a lot of work happening, and we are looking at expanding it to other recruiting areas at VCUs, Georgia, University of Georgia, and all that stuff. So what are the big programs we have? So we have a standard 2 programs which we help our interns. We have a summer program, 10 weeks intern program, where they come in, get educated, they have exposure to all the areas within the Truist workspace. And then based on the experience, they come in and they do a roadshow and they go back. And then there's a second program, which we call it as DSAP, Data Science Accelerator Program. It's an 18-month program. We kicked off last year, and we just finished the recruitment for that 2 weeks back. Even though it was a COVID-19 shutdown, we did a remote recruitment. And it's an 18-month program where the team comes in and they go through where they spend some time with the data office trying to understand the basic concepts of data. They move to the various analytics functions, which I talked about, and try to get a hands-on experience out there. And then at that point of time, they can choose which area they want to stay back, and we help them with that. So with that, I end the presentation, and I'll open up for questions. So
Anything all anyone to ask any questions? Do you have any questions? So there is one question in the chat channel, Srini. So the question is guys, background noise. So if there are personal background noise, please mute yourself out.
I think
So the question is, let me unmute.
Yes.
So let me mute also in that way, at least, as there is some background noise still coming. So the question there is on the chat channel, Srini. So the question is financial impact on COVID. Looks like there is an $893 million loan loss provisions the reported quarter. Is this a shocker, or will it be absorbed smoothly? Your views on that? Srini? It looks like you put it on mute, Srini.
Yeah, I got muted. Okay, so I am not an expert in this space to answer that. It's more a finance question. But I would say that it depends on the organization, how healthy the organization financials are, and at least I can talk what I heard from my recently. Truist is well positioned to come out of it in a clean way. The focus now is on helping our customers. I think that's what all the, my opinion, every organization, every big organization is focused on trying to help their customer. They know that it will be a turnaround, and there will be a period where it's going to be going down. But at least this is the time to build trust. The focus is trying to build trust rather than trying to worry about the dollars at this point of time.
Okay. So the other question that has come is so looks like Raja is working on in SAP data field for the past 13 years. What type of courses do you recommend to transition into something into the data and analytics field?
So if he's in SAP data, SAP has of data opportunity in itself, right? So that is another niche field, which I see very less people out there. But if you want to go ahead and transition into non-SAP field, there are a lot of EDX courses available. There are a lot of online what is that? Lynda.com offers a lot of the courses, and I know that UNC Charlotte and UNC Chapel Hill has, and I think even Georgia Tech has got some specific crash courses to get started. There are many courses available online and offline for you to take and get into it, and you will not be able to learn all the tools. Let me tell you, it's impossible for anybody to learn all the tools out there. So it is just that you need to get the basic concepts right. If you get the concepts right, you can work on any tools. So it's just that you focus on getting the concepts right, concepts of data, the key areas which I talked about. And if you get those right, irrespective of whether it's a MicroStrategy or a Tableau or a Click, you will be able to do a BI reporting. Or if you want to do modeling, it's about how do you apply the statistical algorithm, and that is the key rather than worrying about whether it's R, Python, or SAS.
Okay. Next question is from Balaji. So he is trying to say, what are the technical tools or business areas do we have to learn to position oneself as a data scientist?
So tools, from a tools perspective, it is more about R, Python, and the new age it is Scala Spark. Those are the things which are all the case. TensorFlow is getting popular out there in the industry. So those are all the tool sets you need to know. And the domain is completely based on which area you want to work on. Say, for example, if I were to work on a capital markets, I will be a zero. I will not understand. I don't understand the intricacies of how various aspects works in capital market, but I'm very comfortable with retail banking and risk management and all this stuff, and that's my speed area. So it completely depends on which area you're exposed to. But if you want to get into a data scientist in a specific area with the domain expertise, I would say you should become a BA in that space, or do a production support in the space to understand the data flows which are happening, how the data is interacting. Once you understand that, it'll be easy for you to apply.
All right. Question is on cloud certification. Is cloud certification beneficial for working in an industry? So do you have AWS, GCP, Microsoft Azure, multiple of these things? So what is your view on cloud certification and getting into the?
It's absolutely important. Any kind of continuous education is important, and as the recruiters, as the industry, in the industry, we are looking for people who are certified. If a person who is certified person comes with another person, it is I would always prefer a certified person over a non-certified person. It's just an advantage over the others.
So Purnima, you had a question on what type of skill set are required. I hope it is getting answered. It also depends on which level you are. So if you're like a fresher or a mid-level or a senior, how do you transition? So questions will vary, and from where you are, it kind of that's how it kind of goes on. But all these things should give you some view on the question that you are asking. So another question from Balaji. What oh, so I think that cloud certification we finished that. So, question from Satish. What other verticals or industries do you see the job opportunities specifically within the analytics space?
So this is there in every space. Whether you, if you look at financial services, there's a lot. I am there, so I know. If you take retail, retail is since the brick and mortars are shrinking. There's a lot more focus on trying to use data and analytics to drive, understand the customer behavior and try to get ahead. So retail is way ahead on that. If you look at insurance, there are a lot more newer techniques coming in, and I don't know if people follow those. Allstate is leading the way where you can actually file a claim just by picture. There are a lot of work which happens in the back end where looking at the picture, they're actually trying to underwrite a lot of the stuff. So there are a lot of automation happening using data and analytics out there in almost every industry. If you look at tech industry, Google's, Facebook, and all of them are way ahead in terms of data and analytics, and that is the reason why they are where they are. So there's not one industry. Everybody is now data in terms of understanding. The key goal is the understanding the customer behavior. How do we do hyper personalization? Those are the things people are going after.
Okay. The question is more on if you're a software consultant and venture into a data area. So how do you start with if you're in a broad spectrum and then want to kind of start narrowing it down? How do you one enter into it? Because like you showed, there are so many jargon, so many things from new tools that is getting released every day from every vendor. So if I'm a software consultant, if I want to position, how do I get into data area?
So this is purely Srini's viewpoint, right? I never thought from that perspective. I just first took the job, which I did. I took whatever came to me, and I did it extremely well. Okay, so and that is how I worked through that. Very difficult question to answer from that, because now I see when I look at my son, he's very particular about what he wants to do. He's very clear. He was at the 10th grade. He was very clear. He wants to go only to SCAD, and he didn't bother. He just focused and got into SCAD, like nothing else, right? So it completely depends on your goals. So I would say you have to write down what do you want to be 5 years, 10 years from now, and then backtrack. How do you want to get there? And that will tell you where you want to start, right? And you can start from where you are, or you can start, you may want to look for specific, if you want to be an expert in integration, you may want to be in the architecture area. If you want to be expert in pure data science, your passion is towards statistics, then you want to be a model developer. And if you want to be looking at cool things and trying to understand the pattern, then it is probably data science, right? So it depends on your and your goal. I would say that you have to backtrack that and come to a point.
Very valid point, Srini. So the next question is more on switching of jobs. So if you're already working on the analytics side, how much of weightage is given towards industry, domain, business knowledge versus the technical skills out? So how would you hire people with domain experience versus not?
So if you look at it, it's very difficult to get a domain experience. So I'm not I am not particularly looking for a domain expert. Like when it varies from individual manager, right? Individual person has a weightage on each other area. There are people in my team, my peers who focus only on domain is a very key critical thing for them, and technology they can hire anybody. That's what they think. But I am on the other way around. But there is always a mix of this. So if you look at it, the good opportunity for technology, because today what I am working on the next gen platform, getting that skill set is very rare. So I am looking for the specific TensorFlow, cloud computing knowledge, experts with R and Python, experts with actual the integration experience between the two softwares, what are the challenges, how do they integrate. I'm looking for those experience. So their domain expertise is not this thing. But if I'm looking at my peers who are in the analytics space, on the business side, trying to support the business, they need to have that domain expertise out there, because it is very difficult for an RM who is actually working with a customer to come and sit and explain what he's trying to do. He's expecting a person to understand the concepts and start helping him with the insights he wants out there. So it depends on which area of the bank or financial you work. That's be true in the retail industry also. Which area you work, it's important. When you go into the back end technology side, domain expertise, okay, you don't need to be. But if you want to be in the business side, trying to help the front end client facing teammates, their business knowledge is extremely important.
Yes, absolutely right. And also, like you said, if you're completely new to the area, start with some low-lying things like testing, like the production support that you said. Satish was mentioning about testing. So these types of things will help you some gain on not only on the business side, but also on the technology and the data that underlines it. What type of things, the data that you're talking about, and things like that too. Question from Prasad. So for the business data analyst, what are the skills that you think that you need to have? So you kind of mentioned the business analyst to start with. So what type of skills do you think you need to get
So,
started out?
so first thing is that you need to be able to understand the business process. When I look into it, working successful candidate in data world is about ability to understand the business process and understand how data fits into that process, right? So first thing is that you should be a listener. That's the first thing. You have to sit and listen to what your customers are saying. The second thing is that ability to understand the business process and break it down into smaller chunk, so that then you can start talking about how data fits into each of these areas and how you can help in bringing automation for that particular business process.
Okay. So the next question is from Narayan. So Narayan, this is more focused on the Truist, on what are they trying to do with the fully migrated cloud, and also I would take this question more broader. So if how does a bank look at cloud, and how are you looking at the compliance and regulatory, and what complexities do you see in terms of moving into the cloud?
The cloud is the concept is catching up. Like if you look at our peers, which is to the brick and mortar companies, everybody is in cloud. All the fintechs work out of cloud. Right? And if you look at the finance industry, the brick and mortar companies, now people are moving into cloud. Like recently, Bank of America announced a private cloud offering with IBM. Wells Fargo is in cloud. Cap One is a lot of their processes runs on cloud. Slowly the big banks are shifting towards cloud. So the bigger challenge is that that fine point of understanding the risk and the controls, data controls which are required to manage the data on the cloud. So we as an organization, like I'm not talking about Truist alone, but I'm talking financial services organization, they are heavily scrutinized by regulatory. So there, and the risk function within these organizations, they're extremely paranoid about doing anything which is going to cause us issue. So it is about, and all the organizations are going through this now, and I'm also going through this as part of it. So what we are doing is that we are clearly articulating the data controls which are required based on various risk classification of data, and then trying to prove the concept so that we can mitigate the various risk involved in getting the data onto the cloud. That is number one. Number two is also on the education. And there's a lot of education which needs to be done within the organization before people can start using cloud. So just cloud is not, to be honest, cloud is not an easy answer.
Fair enough.
Analysis last year, if I So last year when I did the analysis, if I take the same set of queries and apply in the cloud, I will pay more than on-prem cost in the cloud. So there's a lot of work to be done before we can migrate people to the cloud. So it's extremely important that these teams are taking it in a very structured way, not rather than rushing through this.
Okay. So I think Shiva's question was more on regulatory restriction security, so that he kind of pretty much answered it, Shiva. So, but the more important question would be, what are your thoughts on the data strategy across fraud and anti-money laundering?
So it's a very complex thing to answer, right? So fraud is one which is actually continuously changing, right? So we cover one so first thing this is not only us, this is across the industry. There is an organization called Early Warning System in Phoenix, which is actually helping all the top organization. So what we are looking at is that how do we get ahead and start modeling on variety of fraud which are happening. How do we relate to unrelated events and try to get a meaning of it. So there are a lot of work going around those kind of modeling and analytic functions out there, which is helping us get ahead of others. But it's a long path. We're just touching the surface, and that's where your AI, ML, and cognitive and deep learning, all those things are coming in to help these fraud, reduce the fraud out there.
I think the next question is more from the automotive industry. So let me take a question to an upper level. So if somebody is in the automotive industry side, what would be your advice to get into the data scientist and analytics stream?
So the automotive industry is more about, if I understand right, the function is to the process efficiency and getting to the precision out there, right? So I don't know in that space what are all the opening. I'm not personally spent any time in the automotive industry, but there are a lot of new things, cool things which can help automotive industry, which is actually blockchain and all the stuff. So there is an intersection, and data is one of the key things running in the for the blockchain. So I think we should probably look at blockchain as one of the areas in that space, because there's the very important that in automotive industry the tracking of inventory and all this is extremely precise. There is going to cause a delay of things getting out there. So I think look for blockchain and the supply chain of those things. But the thing in automotive industry again is that SAP is doing a phenomenal job in managing all the stuff. They're already providing the SAP based BI and analytics out there. So maybe that's another area you should look at.
Right. And aside to your question also on the as a PLM consultant with 3 years from background in Java and zero and no experience within data science. So there are many of these robotic process automation tools are coming up. And there are a lot of these cobotics. They call it the cobotics, COBOTICS. So there is a cobotics that is coming up, which is specifically around helping the individuals within the automotive side. So maybe look at those types of things, how you can kind of go through within the supply chain, like Srini kind of mentioned. So let's okay. So looks like Sai is working on data scientist with a tech firm based in Atlanta, and the question is around cryptocurrency and blockchain. So what are your views on that, cryptocurrencies and blockchain?
So, cryptocurrency, I want to reserve my opinion because I have not understood much of it personally. So I'm not focused on that. But I can talk about blockchain. Blockchain is one of the areas which I'm focused on. So I'm trying to solve that. To look at, I have a couple of years in the industry. We are actually designing something to do the data management. So one of the things which regulator want us to provide when we provide any data is to show the lineage of the data, the metadata, the all type process. So we are trying to see, instead of doing a centralized reporting of that, how can we actually use blockchain to manage these data management in the respective system, and then use an overarching way of integrating that. So that's one of the areas which I'm looking at. But I already know that there are a couple of other big use cases which are going in. One is if you look at any of the financial services organization, big area of spend is finance, central finance reporting. So there's another area which some people are experimenting on. How do we distribute the financial reporting using blockchain? And that could actually, there's a business case of around 60 to 70% of cost saving because of that. There's another area which are looking at clearing and settlement. There's another use case which are running in trade finance. Trade finance has not changed over a century, and now it's time to relook at trade finance and how you can apply blockchain to provide much better stuff in the blockchain. The biggest one is coming in is the cross-border payments, because that is where your AML, terrorist financing, all this are happening. So there's a company called Xcurrent which is already working on this using a blockchain. They are tracking the payments. There are 100 banks which are already signed up for that, and that is helping them two things. One is to track from a regulatory perspective where the money is originating, where it's landing. The second thing which is also helping there is that when you send a money from origination to the delivery point, we don't know how many hops are there, how much commissions are eaten up before it lands up there. So this gives a very clear way of predicting and delivering the right amount of money there. So there are a lot of use cases which are happening. The other one is AML KYC, which is another area where blockchain has been thought about and experimented. So this is I feel that blockchain has got a huge future in the industry, in the financial service industry. It is just that this is going to be a very disruptive technology in way things are happening. So it'll take some time for it to catch up, but once it comes up, it's going to be a major impact to financial services.
Yeah. So the next question is still based on the data skill set itself. So things are moving from SQL to specific tool-based programming like Python and so on and so forth. So what is your recommendation for upskilling an ETL developer to move into a data engineer to a data scientist?
So, there are a lot of online courses available for R, Python out there. So one of the things I would say is that first, to get at the new concept is about object programming, right? If you look at the ETL programming, it's all about working on a tool and mapping the rules out there. So I would say you need to come out of that mindset and start thinking about a pure object programming. Learn Java, simple thing, right? There are a lot of resources available online for that. Lynda.com gives you a lot of lessons out there. And then there are other online courses available. Like if you look at some of the big companies like Snowflake or Tableau, they are giving you the free licenses and the courses available online. So there are a lot of places you can learn free of cost and then upskill your knowledge. And at the same time, there are a lot of resources available online where you can implement this and learn. Because I have Python installed on my Mac Pro, and I do my I'm hands off because I need to understand the intricacies before I talk to my team. So Vignesh knows about it very well and how I push my team from some of the stuff. So it's very important you continuously learn. There are multiple ways you can learn. There are a lot of free resources available. I would say utilize all those resources.
So the next question is with Raj Patavi. So he's asking about the cloud wave. So what is your view on the cloud, hybrid cloud, and on-premise? What are the strength and weakness? And the gap is reducing drastically. So what is your view on that?
So cloud is good, and I don't see in future we'll just have a pure cloud. It's going to be a hybrid, okay? And in my vision, I'm already laying down the hybrid functionality for true, and it's a long journey for us, and I think every organization is looking at it. There is a hybrid and there is a private cloud, and some of these cloud companies are also changing. Like Amazon is giving an option where it's coming and managing your own data centers plus giving you cloud options, right? So the cloud companies are extending that offer out there. So it is hybrid cloud is the key thing. And as I said earlier, the success of the cloud depends on how well we are documenting and managing the data controls out there, and how we are implementing the data controls. Because if you look at any organization, they already have a lot of data on the cloud, whether they like it or not. Like if you go for Salesforce, Workday, some of the big softwares which are used by most of the companies are only cloud SaaS providers on the cloud. They are not on-prem. So half of their clouds and Adobe Experience Manager, which is another they're already in the cloud. So they already know that they're using cloud. It's about how well we document those controls and move portion of it on the cloud is what every company is looking at. Again, at the same time, when I look at the cloud, I cannot put all my data on the cloud. So it's high risky for me. If there is a huge exposure, I need to balance that exposure between cloud and on-prem. There are certain things I will never want to put on the cloud. There are certain things I will be fine as long as they are tokenized, they are encrypted. I can put it on the cloud. So those are the things which a lot of the financial services industry are thinking through, and it's even more important for financial services industry, because if it is in a retail industry or any other industry, when something is exposed, it's just a name and few things are exposed out there. Whereas in financial service industry, when something is exposed out there, could actually mean you lose all your wealth. Okay, because once a person gets the handle of your social security and your date of birth, they can actually steal everything from you. So it is even more important for financial services organization to be extra cautious in protecting the customer data, and that's why it is taking time.
Correct. And that kind of, Kalyan, answers the questions that you have put it through. So security concerns with what can be put on the cloud and how secure it can be, those are all the concerns that it goes out with. So I think we're at the end of the questions. So thank you very much, Srini, for the time. And hope, there's also Tableau and Snowflakes that is giving free. I have the coupon code if anybody wants to kind of learn Tableau, which is a data visualization tool, and Snowflake, which is some cloud data warehouse that is coming up fastly. If anybody wants to learn that and wants to have the code, please reach out to me.